And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I'm your host, Wes Tankersley, along here with my buddy Robert Watson. I just want to say thank you to everyone for the reviews. We've got a couple more reviews over on the podcast. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please make sure you like, share, and review. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and comment. Go ahead and share where you're from. It helps get this out to everyone so that more people can see it, share it, and help us to grow. Robert, what is going on this morning?
It is a beautiful Monday morning, and I thought we would talk about the difference between hearing and listening.
You mean there's a difference between hearing and listening?
Yeah, shockingly enough, there are. It was in kind of a conversation with a friend of mine and was trying to communicate the concept of reciprocity, right? In other words, like we're in a podcast and we try to bring equal value to the conversation, right? We try to balance it. And we know that it's never 50-50, it's never perfect, right? But over the long haul, you're looking at some kind of balance in this reciprocity, and you could communicated it. I effectively communicated the point about reciprocity, which, for example, in a relationship is across many things. You and your wife have to be or try to be equal on a lot of fields, like dealing with your children, dealing with the house, dealing with food, dealing with money. You have all these areas where you're trying to keep a certain degree of balance, right?
Yep.
And so I communicated the concept of reciprocity, and what happened was it got enacted in one facet of the relationship, just one.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on a second. I was talking about the whole relationship. I wasn't talking about just that one aspect. And it was just like the person heard me because they responded, right? But they didn't listen to me, right? They just said, they did an immediate knee-jerk reaction to what I said. And they had a knee-jerk reaction, but they didn't process it through and say, what does that mean for the rest of the relationship if he's saying that it's all... Because one of the things that women really struggle with, and this is where I'm going to get probably slammed, but this is cool, is we're expected to lead in relationships, right?
Right.
And especially in dating relationships, we're expected to lead. And I have no problem leading, but I have a problem where I'm the only one initiating anything.
Yep.
Right? Stop with you think that relationships are going to be my initiation all the way through. That's not a partnership.
Right.
Okay. This needs to be, yes, I'll start things, but once I start them, then we need some action on the reciprocal side. You need to give back. It needs to be about partnership. And what it ends up being is this whole I do, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at them and they're going, well, isn't that the way it's supposed to be? No, it's not supposed to be that way.
Right.
It's okay for me to start, but once we get started, you're supposed to be giving back in equal measure.
Yep.
And instead, what it looks like is one person initiating all the time. And that's frustrating because, number one, initiation communicates to the person. Right? If I initiate, the woman says he's interested because he's initiating. Well, the flip works too.
Right.
If she's not initiating, what does that tell me? She's not interested.
Yep. And there are so many different things that happen right now with this scenario in this world anyway. Like things have changed so much. Like I remember when I was growing up, in the I don't know how to say this, in the I guess the baby boomer era, like you watch like my grandmother and my grandfather, it was like the whole thing was women were supposed to be submissive to men, follow their lead, do what they want, blah, 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 right? Well, that's changed quite a bit, right? Now, my grandmother stayed home, took care of the kids. She did go to work every once in a while, but after the stuff was done with the kids, then she would go to work and work for a little bit and then come back home and like pick up the kids and get dinner ready and do all that stuff. And now it's like a shared thing. My wife works 3 days a week and that's considered full time when you're in nursing because she works 3 12-hour shifts. And those days I drop off the kids, I pick up the kids, I make dinner, I take care of all that stuff. And those other days she comes home and she does it. If I'm at work all day, but then you think about like last night, we get done making dinner. I cooked dinner. I cooked part of dinner. I did the steak and and the bread, and she did the baked potatoes or whatever for our dinner. And then while she's doing the dishes, I'm giving Nolan a shower and getting him ready for the next day. So like, those are the trade-offs that you have. But when you talk about like the value of what that is, it's really dependent on what that person sees as value as well, right? Because we all decide what's the value of the scenario, and my wife may think that that's fair and she may not think that that's fair. Maybe she wanted me to do the dishes and she wanted to give him a shower. Maybe she wanted me to do both because she felt like she did more. So like, we really have to decide what that scenario is and how that trade-off works, because like you said, that reciprocity, it depends on what the person really values and thinks is worth that saying.
Right. And the struggle, of course, and I have this little acronym for relationships, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a partnership or an intimate relationship, it doesn't matter. It's communication compatibility. In a romantic relationship, it's attraction and reciprocity. It's this CAR formula. And it needs to be kind of equal balance into all the areas, because if you can't communicate effectively, nothing else matters. You can stop there. Yeah. If we can't communicate, then you can stop. Well, when you get past communications, now you get into compatibility, and it's only simply for this reason. Do you and I have enough connected? You and I talk in sports terms. Why? Mm-hmm. Because that's how we connect.
Yeah.
So the definitions are easy for us because we can use the sports metaphor. So compatibility is really, really easy for us. So then reciprocity is left, okay, in this kind of relationship. And that makes it easy. So communication, compatibility, reciprocity. In a romantic relationship, you also want attraction. And that's it. And seriously, that's very difficult, because assume you and I did not play sports. Mm-hmm. How would we communicate? What would we use for definitions?
Yeah.
Right?
Let's try communicating with your 11-year-old that way. When your 11-year-old is very artistic and you're very athletic and like has no idea what that means. Like that's one of the struggles that I have is she's very like, hey, I want to do this because of this. And I'm like, well, if you do your best, you're going to be, you explain those things of why you do what you do. And they just don't understand because they don't speak in those terms.
Right. Language is very imprecise. People think it's precise. It's not, because you can say blue, and blue has many different shades. Right. Let's pick on Shakur Sanders' performance as a quarterback for the Browns, right? Everybody has an opinion. You can have opinions all day long, but there are metrics to your job, real simple metrics, and it's not the stat line. Because again, remember, you can throw a pick that shows up as a pick, but you actually hit the guy in the hands. Right. It shows up as a pick, but on your metrics, it's not an interception because you did what you were supposed to do. It was zone. The tight end set down in the zone. You hit him in the hands. It went off his hands to the safety. Guess what? That play, and if he happened to be your one and your receiver in the motion so you hit your one in the hands. The play was executed perfectly. What was the problem? You didn't catch the ball.
Right. Yeah, and you can't control that. I mean, it's funny. I just had Michael Reich on for Shaping Success Treasure Valley, and he's a photographer, and we talked a lot about, and the cool thing is like he's artistic and he is also, athletic. So he's a golfer, but we were talking about color and the background behind me and how people perceive color. Like if they're colorblind, is that red? Well, they can't see. That's a problem. It's like it is all dependent. We sit here and we make all these decisions based on how we feel, but we don't really think about how other people feel, and that listening versus hearing feelings about things, about the way that you interact with people, about the experiences that you have, and they're very different for most people. And so when you're in an argument with someone or you're thinking about something, you have to listen to understand where they're coming from. And I may see it as I did my job last night, but my wife may have said, well, yeah, you made dinner and you gave our son a shower, but I did the dishes, I cleaned the laundry, I did the floors, I did this, I did that, and you sat on the couch. So it's like you don't see those things, but what they perceive is what they see is what you're doing. And it's very tough if you don't listen and understand where people are coming from.
It's very interesting because you now realize why pilots can't be colorblind. Right?
Yeah.
Red lights are a little bit of an issue when you're flying a plane. And if you can't see the red lights, you do have an issue.
You
But
kind of
so when
you kind of
you go
wonder though,
ahead.
like how they figure that. And I'm sorry to go down this rabbit hole, but like
Nah.
red's a color to them, right? Like it's a certain something. Can they not figure that out and change their perception on that?
Right, but the colorblind tests don't allow them to see the numbers that are inside the colorblind thing.
Yeah.
So the reality is they just cross them off the board. What you're talking about is the same thing a dyslexic person does, which is their mind reads it one way and they learn cognitively to reverse it,
Yeah.
right? And yet technically you would say the same thing, if it turns out to be mauve, if red is mauve to you, then why wouldn't you just declare, mauve is red?
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of cognitive look back. Back to the Shakur Sanders thing. So I went through and I sent my son the tape on his 23 throws. And here's the problem. Only 26% of his throws were where they were supposed to be. So what did he look like? He looked like a fifth round draft pick.
Yeah.
Okay. In
Which
the
let's just
NFL.
face
No,
it, he was anyway. I mean, it's,
right. But
this is a funny
this
thing
is-
about that. He's Deion Sanders' kid, so he's a first rounder.
Right. But the thing is that he's still in the NFL.
Right.
And he still was in the first 5 rounds of the draft. Come on, let's get serious about what you're talking about. You're talking about hair splitting between athletic ability.
Yeah.
But again, what did he look like? He looked like a rookie fifth round pick.
Yep.
Okay, so what? He was a fifth round rookie pick. Now, if he was the first round pick and he looked like that, I would be like, okay, let's see how he develops. So when Tom Brady's drafted as 199, what does his expectations look like?
Yeah. Like Sanders should be.
Right. And so you begin to understand that this all becomes some kind of media makeup thing. This is about perception reality. No, this is the media making a story about nothing.
Yeah.
Because here's the point. Talk to me when you're in your 5th year of starting in the NFL, and I'll tell you whether you're successful or not.
Yep.
I said your 5th year, not your first, your second, or your third, your 5th year in the NFL. Think about how many quarterbacks have, again, a starter for 5 years in a row on the same team. That's saying something, right?
Yep.
And so this is again back to the whole thing of what people are doing with their listening and hearing skills, right? They're hearing a bunch of chatter, but they're not really listening. They're listening to this debate as some kind of inner academy debate that's going on in sports. Why are we involved as the audience? I don't care what your problem is. You guys
Yeah, I
fight
mean,
about it.
it's pretty crazy too. Like you look at as we're talking about something about the WNBA and how they are talking about, right. One of the big controversial things right now with the WNBA is like pay us what you owe us, like pay us like the NBA. And when you open your eyes and you look at the scenario, and I'm hoping that these players actually look at that and open the scenario, like they don't really feel that that's it. Like, do they deserve to be paid more? Maybe, but look at what they bring and look at an NBA game. If an NBA game is completely sold out and there's, I don't know, those basketball stadiums are huge and it looks like there's a bunch of ants running around on the field. Like, I feel like there's more people in an NBA game, and I could be completely wrong, than in an NFL game, depending on the stadium size. But you look at it and you see the amount of draw that come to this game and the amount of people at this game and what they pay for a ticket versus what they pay for a WNBA ticket. Like when you look at Caitlin Clark shows up, who is basically the face of, whether anyone likes that or not or says whatever they say, she's the face of the WNBA. The WNBA was not even on my radar until she started playing, and I don't even know why it's on my radar now. Other than she's just super interesting and watching her play is crazy. But when the stadium goes from 4,000 to 10,000 people in it, and I said 4,000 versus 10,000, which is very low amount because we're talking like 40,000 in an MLB game. I think some of those, and I'm probably wrong, but I think some of those basketball stadiums will hold up to 80, maybe. There's a ton of people in a game who are paying way more for a ticket, and they're watching these people, and more people show up for an NBA game, and you want more money. Look at that reality. Think about that. All you have to do is look at the scenario. It doesn't matter male or female. If more people are showing up at one game, they're going to pay more. to those players to get them there so that they can get more people in so they can make more money. So
Yeah, there's approximately 80 games in a basketball season. There's 17 games in the NFL. It's approximately 5 times more. So you have 5 times more games. Let's just say that it's like 30,000. Let's keep it a reasonable number.
yeah,
So 30,000 is approximately 1/3 of what an NFL stadium holds. So just kind of do the math.
yeah,
There is a lot more revenue opportunity with NBA across the board, a lot more revenue opportunity than there is with the NFL. It's not huge, but there is a difference. But the question for you asking in WNBA versus the NBA regular NBA games is what's the revenue?
yeah,
Right. If it was just revenue, they did this in the NFL. Remember, if you go back 10 years, it was a revenue sharing thing. They basically said, hey, owners, you make X, whatever X is $1. And here's the point. We need to be making 22 cents of that dollar.
Yeah.
25 cents of that dollar. That's it. That was the conversation. And it was say, this is how we're going to get that 25 or 20 whatever cents of the dollar. Here's how we're going to get it. We're going to get it in benefits. We're going to get it in straight pay. That's it.
yeah. And that's the hard thing is like, I honestly, you only see what the media portrays. So I honestly feel like if these people in the WNBA, the players in the WNBA are sitting there going, we're not getting paid enough. Maybe they're not getting paid enough, but they will not make, if they do not bring the draw that the NBA gets, then they don't deserve the pay that the NBA gets. It's that simple. It's not like we're going to pay you, $80 million a year to not get people to watch your game. It's really hard to understand that, but the media is making it about equality, male versus female, and it's like you can't make equality out of something that is not equal. That's all there is to it. What are you going to do? Tell, hey, half the people who are going to the NBA game, you go to the WNBA, so we can make it equal. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, and that you hit on the subject again. That's the third time we've talked about the media distorting reality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where you have metrics. I mean, there are metrics for a quarterback's job. Ask Tom Brady. He'll tell you, you were 17 for 19 in the game. Tom, were your stat line 17 for 19? Was that a 17 for 19 game? He goes, no. Why? He said 5 of my throws weren't where they were supposed to be. I got bailed out by receivers.
Yep.
So that, first person to say, my job is to put the ball where the defensive player is not and where my player can get it. That's the job.
Yep.
It's the same thing when you look at revenue sharing. No different.
It's crazy too, thinking about that. Like if you, just like you said, I would have never thought to look at, Sanders and what he was doing. But if you have really good other players around you, like really good receivers or really good running backs or whatever, they're going to make that better for you. Not because you're a good quarterback, but because they're good receivers. So, you throw the ball close to where the target is, that person's going to make you better. But if you didn't have that person, that metric goes way down.
Right. And also, if you squeeze a ball into the end zone for a touchdown and there are 5 defensive players that had the position to tip it, and you're really not throwing the ball where the defensive player can't get it, your job, swear to God, your job as a quarterback is to throw it where the defensive player is not.
Yeah.
And where your guy has a chance. But you start with where the defensive player is not. And your guy has the optimal. Because you're going to get enough 50-50 balls, or what they're called. 50-50 balls on a regular basis anyhow. But what you're supposed to be doing is you're supposed to be throwing the ball away from the defender.
Yep.
That is when you get into all the... So you might look at the play and say he fitted into a tight window and did a good job. When I'm assessing him, I'm going, hold on a second, that wasn't your 1.
Yeah.
That was your 2. What did you do with the 1? Your 1 was open.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I grade that as the quarterback coach? You did a terrible job.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, because that's the same thing with Johnny Manziel. Everybody was going, look at what he does off script. I don't care what he does off script.
Yeah,
I care what he does on script.
Yeah, same thing with Brett Favre. It was the same thing. Like, how many times did you see Brett Favre thrown from right here that didn't even look like the right type of throw? Forced it. Maybe 1 out of 10 times it works, but the other 9 times it doesn't. And that, hey, he threw an interception type talk, like you said. Like, if he hit the guy, then this is where it goes the other way, right? So he hits the guy in the chest, dead center, it bounces off his hand and there's a defender next to him. The defender gets the ball. Is that really an interception? Should that go to the quarterback? No, I mean, that's the receiver not doing their job. Instead of now it gets blamed on the quarterback for him not doing his job. Now, if the guy's coming across and you throw it into zero coverage and there's no one there, that's, a blatant interception. So it's kind of crazy how they can rate that stuff.
Yeah, and it was funny because defensive back, one of the finest in the NFL has ever seen, I'll skip using his name, but he was asked, who's the best quarterback he ever faced? And he said, overall? He said, Tom Brady, that's easy. No, best quarterback, athletic ability, all that. He goes, oh, well, that's easy, Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. See, interesting how we ask a question a different way. Who's the best quarterback you ever faced? The guy just shook his head. Tom Brady.
Yeah.
No. Best athletic overall talent at the quarterback position, Lamar Jackson.
And that's the thing, though. Talent will only take you so far, right? Like, you could be athletically talented. You could be fast. You could throw the ball, 70 yards. But what Brady did better than everyone else was he executed. And when you can't execute, whether you're talented or not, and that's not to say that Brady's not talented, but his talent came from a different spot. It didn't. He can't run. He can't. There's certain things that he can't do. But he figured out a way, just like you said, to lower the probability of a mistake happening by surrounding himself with people who were better and then forcing them to be better by leading by example.
Right, and it's fascinating because if you had your choice, and you're on the football field playing a pickup game, and you're choosing who you want to play with, Lamar Jackson looks extremely appealing. Why? Mm-hmm. He's a fantastic athlete.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But if I want to win the game, I'm choosing Brady.
Yeah. You want the guy who's going to be better, who's going to execute better, who's going to pay attention to the detail, and make that happen.
Well, it just teaches you about the metrics of going back into what the metrics are of a quarterback. That's why I said grading your throws, and that's what you're always supposed to do. Believe it or not, on Monday morning, the quarterbacks grade every one of their throws. Mm-hmm. Right? It is not a completion that matters. It is where the ball placement was relative to the play. Did you choose the first, second, or third receiver? Did you go off script? All that kind of thing. And you're basically grading it. And you set with the offensive coordinator, using the head coach. And what happens at the end of it is what you do is you get better at your profession.
Yeah. It's funny that this is even a conversation because you look at like Deion Shedor's dad, right? And he talks about, I've seen lots of clips about this recently where he's talking about who's the best two-way sport athlete. And I always go to Bo Jackson because Bo Jackson was freaking insane.
Yeah.
And Deion talks about how, he was a terrible baseball player, but he played two sports, He was a very good football player, but he was a terrible baseball player. And you look at that and he's like, well, what's wrong? Why? He goes, well, I couldn't hit a curveball. So he recognizes his ineptitude as a baseball player and the things that he could do, but you still have to have that confidence. And that's really where it comes in with some of these athletes, is that the confidence level in yourself of how good you actually really are, you have to believe in yourself too. And so he believed in himself as being good enough to play two sports, but he also knew the reality of the scenario where he was not as good as other players. And so he was, and this is not demeaning Deion in any way. He was good to play two sports. He just wasn't the greatest baseball player.
And the truth was that Bo Jackson was, at least for this era that you and I know, I can't go backwards in time and know whether Jim Thorpe was or.
Right.
But Bo Jackson was an absolutely phenomenal athlete. I mean, I watched him play baseball, and he was an all-star in baseball. He was an all-star in football. That's just flat amazing.
I didn't realize how short his career actually was. I mean, in football, in the NFL, because he couldn't continue to play in the NFL because it was just too taxing on your body. But he didn't. What was it? 4 seasons, 3 seasons? It was not very long.
Well, he blew his hip out. He was so strong that when he tried to get out of that tackle, he actually dislocated his own hip.
Yep.
And that's stunning ability. I mean, he just was an amazing athlete. And again, as far as Deion's the first one to say, all of them are the first one to say, Bo Jackson's the finest athlete they've ever seen.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the guy is insane. And what's funny about it now is like Bo doesn't even talk about it. That's one of the coolest things about any athlete that is spectacular. Like they don't brag about how good they are; they just show you, and it's amazing to watch him do that. Like you see that guy, like you said, he was running so hard they were trying to tackle him by the leg that he just kept running with the other leg, and they ripped the hip right out of socket because he was so strong, so fast, so explosive.
Yeah. It's phenomenal. But circling back to the media thing you were talking about, this is listening versus hearing.
Yep.
Okay. We're hearing the media. We're really not listening, because if we would listen, we'd turn them off.
Yeah.
Because
And we have to turn that back into, because what this conversation is about is thinking about your relationships and the reality of the scenario, how you can implicate this in your art, put this in your own life, right? Like how you can think about the way that you are. Like I talk to my wife all the time, and she's yelling and screaming at me about something that I didn't do, but she never thinks about my perception of the scenario. And then we're like, I can't read your mind. I think that's a line that I use a lot. It's like, what do you want me to read your mind? What do you want me to do? Well, you should just see it. Well, I don't just see it, because I don't just look at it that way. You have to be communicative. You have to understand that just because you see it, that's what's important to you. That's what you're looking at. It doesn't mean that everyone else is.
Yeah. And that goes back to that first thing that I said, which was communication. If we don't have communication, stop. You don't have to worry about the other facets of a relationship. Why? You'll never get there.
Yep, exactly. Great conversation as usual. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us. We will be back next Monday. Like I said, we got a couple new reviews over on Apple Podcasts. Please make sure that you're interacting with this content. If it brings you meaning, it helps us to continue to keep going and growing the show. Do a review over on Apple Podcast. If you are watching a clip or you see the full episode over on YouTube, please make sure that you comment. It helps us to get it out there. Watch it all the way through. Play it in the background if you want. It's really bad for us if you just go and watch like 2 seconds of it and turn it off. We need people to interact, and we appreciate you being here. And Robert, thanks very much for hanging out with us today.
Have a marvelous Monday, everyone.
All righty.